We are live. We can start.
Great. Let's get started. So thank you everybody for joining us. This session is called Secure All the Things, Make Security Accessible to Everyone. We'd like to thank you all for joining us. We know it's a busy morning at SOSCON, and so we'd like to take some time and talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing on the innovative side for you, all of our customers. I would like to introduce Christian Bromann, who's part of our open source program office. He's a staff software engineer and has been at SOS Labs for many years and leads a lot of our innovation into leveraging open source platforms and frameworks and so on. My name is Justin Dolly. I'm the Chief Security Officer at SOS Labs, and I've been at SOS for almost a year and a half. So it's been an exciting ride so far. But it's truly a pleasure to be here with all of you at SOSCON 20. It's exciting. It's exciting to be sharing some of the innovations that we're working on at SOS Labs to give you more and more insights and deeper understanding into the quality of your own software. And that's, after all, our main mission. To be selfish for a moment, I'm standing in front of you as a security professional, not as a QA person, not as an SDET, not as a head of engineering. I'm responsible for the security of SOS Labs. That means our company, our networks, our users, all of our environments, not only those things, but also for the platform and services that you, our customers, leverage all day, every day. I've been leading security at public and private companies for more than 20 years. And the one thing I can admit to you is I've always regarded myself as a tester, although I've never really had that title. The reason for that is, if you think about it, the active testing or the art of testing is a massive part of any security program because it provides you with results. It gives you insights into vulnerabilities and flaws and weaknesses, with which information you can make smart risk decisions. These signals are critically important and have to date, in my opinion, been relatively underserved. We aim to change that situation by providing you with security signals as part of your testing, alongside your current testing routines, so that the quality of your software can be as good as it can be and as good as you want it to be. After all, security issues are simply an outcome due to a lack of quality. It just so happens these days the security outcome is one of the more grave outcomes given our current cyber landscape. So with that said, to set the stage, I'd like to hand it over to the illustrious Christian Bromann for more on why we do these things.
Thank you, Justin, and hello, everyone. We at SOS here have really one general vision and goal in mind. It's kind of our credo, if you say so, which is increase automation within the software development, therefore allow faster delivery of features and software, which is shipped with high quality and therefore contains as less bugs as possible. And we see that more and more responsibilities are moved towards the developer. We see that in testing, we see that in DevOps. Instead of having one team that builds features, one team that tests these, and one that deploys them, many orgs move towards a unique delivery team that develops, tests, and deploys at once. And therefore, they take ownership about their complete pipeline. The advantage? Of course, it's less back and forth between teams, which means there are less cross-department communication, which results ultimately in faster time to delivery. It not only saves time, but also resources. And we see this kind of desire now also in the security space. Rather than having a dedicated security team auditing the software at the end of the software development lifecycle, we want the majority of that work done in an automated fashion early in the development. It kind of applies to the same shift left principle that we see in other disciplines. Now, as a developer, the question is, when and how do I test the security of applications? As with all testing types, same with security, there are various approaches to that. In security, it starts with threat modeling, which is a process to identify potential threats, such as structural vulnerabilities or the absence of appropriate safeguards. It then continues to a SAS model, which is static application security testing, which is an approach pretty similar to code linting if you're a developer like me. This approach allows you to scan your code and discover security problems. And like all the linting tools that are out there, these tools provide fast feedback and allow you to detect a lot of issues, which, however, have some sort of low signal, high noise, as they provide false positives. At the next stage, we have the so-called DAST or IST, which is dynamic or interactive application security testing. Similar to functional tests, you run assertions on an assembled application. It requires usually an environment like a browser, which is why this kind of testing is more difficult to set up and usually slower to run. However, their results are usually very valuable, and you don't find many false positives. Lastly is, of course, security in infrastructure as code, as well as security monitoring, as well as attack detection, which all have their own complexities and challenges. Now, you can probably already guess where Sauce Labs' area of focus is going to be. It's correct. It's the DAST approach. In security, there's really no silver bullet because there will be never security. There's really no silver bullet because there's really no one tool that does it all. This is why there are so many security approaches and tools in the market and ecosystem. DAST here is really the security end-to-end approach that aligns with the Sauce platform and our vision as a whole. While we're going to evaluate more opportunities in the future, DAST is definitely the best way to get our foot into this space. Today, Sauce Labs is running more than 3 million tests every day. This is a very, very large number. And it gives us a huge advantage compared to any of the competitors and tools in the market. Because we know your application from the in and out. Based on your functional test, we know where you log in, with which credentials you may use. We know the process of your checkout flow, which steps and pages are involved, and most importantly, what kind of data is being transmitted from one form to the other. All this information will help us to properly analyze the application under test and to provide you really the most important, insightful, and meaningful signals. One of the biggest problems that a lot of security tools have is to implement these scanners to understand your application. Scanners that are able to go through a login flow and tap into secure areas. Sauce Labs has this problem solved by using information captured through your functional test flow. So with your functional test, you can prepare literally everything needed to analyze the security of your application. Now the question becomes, what tool are we going to use to provide security features on top of our existing platform? Sure, we could have implemented a proprietary solution, but that would really mean that we would reinvent the wheel. And everyone knows, especially the ones that know the history of Sauce Labs, that we have always built upon open source. And we found a tool that is really a perfect fit for us. It's called OWASP ZAP. It's not only open source and part of the OWASP Foundation, it's a trusted tool by security experts with a long history of development. I think its first release was somewhere around 2010, and since then it was always developed in the open. And it's also very interesting. It has also very interesting similarities to WebDriver. It is built with an API first in mind, which means that you can interact with the tool with abstracted API endpoints. And interestingly enough, the founder of ZAP, like the founder of Selenium WebDriver, are two lovely persons from the UK, which both start with the name Simon. Simon Stewart, the creator of WebDriver, and Simon Bennett, the creator of ZAP. So if that is not a successful, if that is not a sign for a successful collaborative future, what is? So the way ZAP works is that you can use it to crawl through a page and analyze what is happening throughout that process. There are kind of two ways of scanners. One is the more headless one, which makes requests and then parses the responses to see where to go next. The other one is an Ajax scanner, which uses real browsers to tap into single-page applications. But the really powerful way to use that is using it as a proxy. You can use technologies like WebDriver with tools like Selenium or WebDriver.io to crawl through a page and route all the requested responses through Zap as a proxy. Now we're running and moving this all to the cloud and connecting it to the functional tests that are run by our customers. This can become really powerful. Your functional tests for your application 100 times more efficient than any scanning tool would do. Scanning vulnerabilities with Zap in the cloud can be 10 times faster than doing it manually on your local machine, so that testing functionality and security can become almost one single workflow. So let me show you how this workflow might look like at Sauce. Let me introduce you to someone called Christine Watson. She's leading the QA team in her company. She and her team have been running a lot of tests on Sauce already, and they're now getting this requirement to ensure that security bugs are caught early in development. Her tests are written in Java, and she wonders what she needs to do to fulfill that requirement. She finds out that this new security tool and capability from Sauce can be really useful for her, so she's going to check it out to see how she can enable it. You probably already know about our custom Sauce capabilities. In them, you can define things like naming your test or attaching your test to a specific build, or enabling other capabilities such as extended debugging or performance testing. With security, it will be the same thing. You enable it in your custom capabilities, and this will tell our cloud to configure the browser in a way that all the network traffic is routed through our Zap instances deployed in our public cloud. Then Christine can then start normally running her tests as she would do before through maybe our new test runner toolkit called SauceCTL, or directly through a Java framework. Now, while the tests are running and Christine is getting a coffee, it gives me some time to explain your options, what you could do after your functional tests are finishing. So every team will have different kind of security requirements. I've been talking to a lot of customers, and some of them said, I would never fail a pipeline because of security reasons. And others said, well, I would indeed exactly do that. What it comes down really are those requirements. And you need to be careful because adding security testing might have some implication on your pipeline. Because scanning vulnerabilities ultimately takes some additional time and therefore could slow down your pipeline. And remember, our vision is to speed up the development of features. However, as we are running everything in the cloud, we can start analyzing, scanning those vulnerabilities while your functional tests are running. Our goal is to build out these capabilities to make you really want to include security checks after every test. And we will allow you to define these set of requirements so that every scan really just looks for the things that you're interested in. Security in general is really difficult to describe anyway. Every vulnerability can be critical for one person, but not for the other. Sauce Labs, again, will also not be the one tool that will help you to secure your whole application. However, detecting and mitigating common vulnerabilities early in the software development lifecycle gives your security engineers just more time to introspect the difficult aspects of your overall architecture. So in the case of Christine's team, the company policy here is that every development team has to review their security bugs at the end of each sprint. So what she does is she scans for vulnerabilities for all the tests that she has been running for her last build on Sauce. She can trigger that by either clicking a button on our dashboard in our build view, or she can just trigger a CLI command automatically in the pipeline. This will trigger Sauce to open up all these Zap sessions that we have stored as an artifact and run a scan to detect vulnerabilities. Now, in Christine's case, she will find 10 vulnerabilities, 10 new vulnerabilities for her application. Some of those vulnerabilities are things like, missing security headers or a secret key in one of the JavaScript files. And these are easy things to fix. Christine knows her application and she knows how to apply these patches. In addition, and with the additional information that Sauce Labs will provide for every vulnerabilities, she will be able to squash these away and move on. However, there's one vulnerability that she and her team doesn't know and doesn't know how to deal with it. So what she does is she assigns that vulnerability to one of her security engineers in a different department called Wait, through a Jira integration that might be soon reality at Sauce. So given that Sauce stores all the Zap sessions like a normal asset, Wait is going to just download that asset and drag and drop it into the overzap UI, where he can then introspect all the request responses made in that functional test. He can introspect the parameters, the payloads, and see which URLs are affected to find the vulnerabilities that Christine were talking about. He can then just find out how to mitigate that vulnerability and send the message with the necessary steps for it back to the team. With this workflow, really, the QA and the dev team learned about this new vulnerability and understands how to mitigate it moving forward. Now, Christine and her team are happy because they have shipped a more secure application, and Wade is happy because he made the internet just a little bit safer. As I said in the beginning, there's no silver bullet for security. Well, the closest thing that gets to it is awareness within developers, QA teams, and everyone around that application. So to sum up this little workflow example, with Sauce Security, you will be soon able to analyze vulnerabilities of your application. And by running overzap under the hood, we can provide a deep analysis and expose the most common vulnerabilities, things that you can find in, for instance, the overzap top 10. In addition to that, we will continue to use data that we capture as part of your functional test to even provide you more security scans, like attacking login forms or any kind of forms on an application. Functional and security tests will go hand in hand to ensure that you can deliver a bug-free and secure experience to your users. I hope this got you excited. It certainly is an exciting step for us to increase our testing capabilities with such a powerful tool. And we have a lot of ideas how we can check your app and give you these signals that are important to you. Every organization does their security differently. If you're interested, we want to hear from you. So please connect with us and help us shape this product. We would love to show you more, and even and if you want to take a sneak peek, please reach out to our PO, Paul Dörfling. Thank you all, and with that, I want to hand it over to Justin for his closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Christian. It's super interesting. Just to underline a couple of Christian's points, again, having been in security for a very long time, there's a few things I know to be true. In many cases, vulnerabilities don't ever go away. If you don't believe me, just install old software and connect it to the internet and see how long it lasts. The vulnerabilities are still out there. And that's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of what OWASP did back when they got founded and they started to put this framework together. They don't come out with a new top 10 every single year, but you can go back as far as 2010 and look at the top 10 most common flaws found in web apps and on websites. And you can look at the latest one, which I think is 2018 or 2019, and the top 10 are almost the same. The only difference between the two are, we have, in some cases, different techniques and different technologies that we use now that we didn't use back then, and they have resulted in additional flaws. And so, it isn't that these are 0 days or anything like that. I mean, we're not raising the bar incredibly high, but what we are doing is, a rising tide is lifting all boats. If we can check for all of these vulnerabilities that are being exploited on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a minute-by-minute basis, then we improve the security of all of our infrastructure and all of the web. another point that Christian made was around, you can't dictate to a company what their risk might be. Everybody's risk is different. As Christian said himself, so one issue can be critical for one company and immaterial to somebody else. And that's the reason why we've taken this approach and decided that, you know, we want to be able to provide you with the signals, and again, be able to back it up with the insights that we have because of the number of tests that we run and the data that we get in our cloud, to be able to understand better what the criticality of these issues might be, and to present them to you. What you do with the signals is completely up to you, and it should be that way. Developers care about security to a certain extent, but they have other drivers. They have to be able to deliver. Their quality is measured in other ways. They have to collaborate closely. We completely understand that security, you know, oftentimes is not the highest of priorities. But we believe this is a really good way of presenting the information in a holistic fashion to be able to make smart risk decisions when it comes to deploying software and releasing. So with that, I'd like to once again thank you all very much for your attention. It's been a pleasure, and then I believe we can open up for questions if there are any.
I think we have a couple. So one is from Julia. She said, how about adding the security test to a pull request? I'm happy to answer that. So that's definitely an interesting thing, and this is something that we definitely explore in general. Like, how can we connect ourselves to your repository to trigger test when you push to a certain branch or when you create a pull request? So this is overall a general interesting topic for us, and once we enter this space, we will definitely connect this with all the other capabilities that we have at Source, including security testing. Next one is from Sam. Can Source Labs detect vulnerabilities found in previous builds and continually highlight until we, as the user, highlight to you it's been fixed? This way, it doesn't always check for it when we know it hasn't been fixed yet. I can take this as well. Yeah, I think again we will allow you to define your security requirements, and if your requirement is that this vulnerability is a known one that you want to ignore, so be it, and we will not be going to alert you for that. So yeah, there will be ways how you can set this up and have your own requirements per team.
Yeah, it's a great point, Christian. Just to add to that a little bit, is it's important for us to be able to provide something that allows you the flexibility to decide how much you care. Again, everybody's risk is not the same. So if there is a vulnerability that you find oftentimes across your code base, it could lead to a security education or security awareness program for your devs to be able to say, we consistently make this error, or we consistently see this flaw in our software, and it can provide that sort of level of feedback. And so if you take the signal and you, for example, open a Jira ticket, and then you can track from Jira, if you tag it and put the right components and descriptions in there, you'll be able to pull those insights out of Jira, for example, and be able to understand the flaws that get made on an ongoing basis, and then, you know, perhaps have a training session or some sort of an education session with your devs to ensure that it doesn't happen going forward in the future. But we want to be able to provide you with the signals so that you can develop your own insights as well.
I see one last question, I think. Is there any Jira integration with overlap report? I don't know that, but I have heard from Paul, our PO, that there will be a Jira integration soon integrated in our platform. And this can be a nice way how teams can then report vulnerabilities to, as I mentioned in my workflow example, to a security engineer. I think that's it. Again, thank you everyone for joining, and reach out to us if you're interested, and see you all around. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.